We need to talk about ideas, good ones and bad ones. We need to learn stuff about the world. We need an honest, intelligent, thought-provoking, and entertaining review of what the hell happened on this planet in the last 7 days. We need to sit back and listen to the Iron Fist and the Velvet Glove.
Well, at least the Iron Fist and Joe the Tech Guy. How are you, Joe the Tech Guy?
I'm good, and you?
I'm well. Scott must be still away. I haven't heard from him. Maybe I should have reached out to Scott. Scott, if you're there, I wasn't sure that you're actually you're back.
Well, he left just after Christmas.
Right.
So it's got to be close to a month.
Yeah, well, when you were the regional slumlord, Queensland
there
regional
is
slumlord, you cashed up and you can afford these boomer holidays. Well, he's not quite a boomer, is he? But
no, he's Gen X.
Poor Scott, just launching into backhanded insults. I mean, that's why you got to come back on the podcast, Scott, so you can defend yourself. Right. John is in the chat room. Hello, John. So if you're in the chat room, say hello. We will try and incorporate your comments. What are we going to talk about? A little brief mention on Australia Day. We'll be talking about the hate speech bill. Boy, that is an example of shock doctrine in action where immediately in the aftermath of a catastrophic event, powerful people pass laws that they normally wouldn't get away with.
Yeah.
The fact that it also coincided with Christmas didn't help because we're all still asleep.
Yes.
Although
the right wing were definitely bleating about it, weren't they?
They were, and that's come back to bite them on the bum. That completely backfired. We'll talk about that backfire. In the last 2 weeks, hate speech bill and the coalition imploding, and then, of course, fun and games in Trump's America, and a bit about economics and the Nobel Peace Prize, maybe a bit about Iran. Got a comment from one listener during the last couple of weeks saying, you're doing too much on foreign affairs. Get back in the wheelhouse of religion in Australia. You can only do it for so long, mate. But I guess we're doing a little bit this time because there will be a bit of religious influence and all the rest of it when we talk about this hate speech bill. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll make our way through it, muddle our way through it. Joe, Australia Day. I just threw this in at the last minute because I came across it. A Resolve poll found that 68% of Australians now support January 26 as the date for Australia Day, up from 56% shortly after the Voice referendum 2 years ago and 47% 3 years ago. So from 3 years, it's gone from 47 to 68 in terms of the date for Australia Day.
I think it's a lack of a viable alternative. We want to celebrate Australia Day the same as lots of other countries have their own country day. I think before anything happens, we need a strong alternative and a strong reason why we should be changing it, other than just it needs to be on a different date. We need to pick a date. We need to advocate why, and then we can talk about changing it, I really think.
Yes. Unfortunately, our constitution inconveniently was promulgated on the 1st of January.
Yes.
We've already got a holiday there. That. If we ever become a republic, then the date that act is passed could be the one. They should really aim to pay us at sort of later in the year because we've got too many holidays at this point of year.
Well, yeah, but this is a nice placeholder, isn't it? It marks the end of the school holiday.
True.
So
I guess I have a theory that this country shuts down from Melbourne Cup Day to at least Australia Day and possibly Easter. Depending on how hard you work. But
and then they try and fit everything in the 2 months before end of financial year.
That's it. Yeah. Joe, in Europe, were you big into the whole European summer? Everybody left to go, the Germans and the Dutch and that, they have these long summer holidays over there, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, In manufacturing more so, but really in the UK, no, there wasn't such a thing. And if you didn't have children, you would take your holidays after the schools had gone back whilst the weather was still good, but the flights and accommodation were a damn sight cheaper.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
no, there isn't a national shutdown in the UK in the same way. But
Yeah.
France, yes. All of Paris moves out of Paris for a month and a half, 2 months.
Yes. Yep. And of course, in America, they just don't have holidays.
Well, there is that, yeah. No, apparently they have lots of mandatory public holidays, which makes up for the fact they get bugger all annual leave.
Oh, really? Kind of the Martin Luther King Day, Thanksgiving Day, or sort of those
Yeah.
sorts of things.
Apparently those holidays kind of get you up to more than you'd have otherwise. Well, yeah. You get more public holidays over there than you do in other countries.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't think Greenland's in a hurry to become part of the US, because I saw an interview with a lady who looked, supposedly she was living in Greenland and basically saying, why would we want to be American? Well, we get free healthcare, we get our education paid for. I don't know if she mentioned holidays, but if she'd have thought of it, she would have. So
yeah. Anyway, Trump's talking about paying them $100,000 each, and it's like, well, how much is decent healthcare worth?
Yes, yeah.
More than 100,000 across your lifetime, I should think.
Back to Australia Day. Even in the 18 to 34 age bracket, 55% allegedly wanting to keep calling the 26th of January Australia Day. So across the board in terms of age there. So yeah.
I still propose we have Rum Rebellion Day instead.
What date was that?
26th of January.
Oh, just a different year. A year after the?
No, several years after.
Right.
It was another New South Wales event.
Well, that would have been was Bligh there then? Was it?
It was Bligh.
Right.
Yes.
That's the other option. Joe, hate speech bill. So this has been rushed through so fast. Yes. Just pages and pages of this, and it's impossible to keep track of it until the thing was passed. And this is just a classic case of shock doctrine, where governments, powerful interests, get things passed in a hurry, which you wouldn't ordinarily get passed in normal times. But the shock of an incident allows you to do that. So, yeah, sorry, Zena, that's not going to work. Yeah. My wife's decided just to do the washing up. Only one thing. So anyway,
right.
We'll put that on hold and watch the tennis in silence. Yeah. Back to hate speech bill. Yes. Classic in that sense. Joe, like the religious anti-discrimination bill. Remember that one? We had years of arguing the finer points of that.
And then it died anyway.
It did, because everybody thought, no, this isn't what we want. But that got, an opportunity for people to write in, give their opinions on different things. Different stakeholder groups were asked their opinion. Of course, if you were a religious group, you were asked your opinion. If you were a particularly non-religious group like the Rationalist Society and people like that, you weren't asked your opinion. Yeah, exactly. But, there were rolling discussions around the country. There was a lot of toing and froing. It went on for years because people were arguing the whole Israel Folau, freedom of speech stuff. How does that affect minorities, gays and lesbians? And there was a lot of conflicting sort of stuff happening there, and it did require a debate. This one, kind of similar in a way, in that the issues are as tricky for many people, as demonstrated by the coalition implosion over it.
Yes.
And rushed through. It's an indictment of Labor as much as it is of this coalition, that they just rushed this through without properly thinking about it. So
Now, did the religious teaching section get in or not?
On this particular bill just now,
Well, there was arguments as to whether or not it had passed, and I wasn't sure.
it's passed. So there is it did get
There was a
through.
carve out that if you were preaching your religious texts, then that was fine.
I don't know. I don't know. It's like, even though I do keep track of what's going on, there hasn't been enough time for commentators to write stuff for people like me to read about it, unless I actually dived into the act myself to sort of verify.
Because Albanese, when asked why he was putting that in, he said, "Look at the Old Testament."
Right.
So basically, they realised that the Old Testament is hate speech, and have put a carve out in there to allow it.
Yes. Well, Joe, the biggest carve out in this. So the way the Act works is it creates a thing called a hate group.
Yes.
And if you are a member or an organizer, heaven forbid, in a hate group, then you're subject to various penalties. And really, what constitutes a hate group is if you've got members who engage in certain activity. And one of the typical hate group is your Nazi group that they say that they are aiming for.
Mm-hmm.
But a group that was carved out was people who advocate for genocide.
Yes.
They are particularly excluded from being a hate group.
Well, presumably as long as it's a religious genocide.
No, well, just any if your members are promoting genocide, then that is still a criminal offence for the particular members involved under the criminal codes around the place. However, it doesn't mean that the group is a hate group. However, if, Joe, you're part of a group that's criticising genocide, let's say maybe a genocide in, I don't know, Gaza, and your criticism causes some group, I don't know, maybe some Jewish groups to be suffering some sort of psychological consequence of discomfort as a result, then you can be a hate group. So, incredibly, if your members advocate for genocide, it will not of itself qualify as a hate group.
Right.
But if your members are criticising genocide, then that could actually constitute a hate group. How's that for
so
shitty
if you're
piece of legislation?
If you're a Nazi advocating for the extermination of the Jews, that's perfectly fine.
Well, the genocidal part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know how they're catching the Nazis then when they're not catching the genocide part. So anyway, it's quite extraordinary. So Michael Bradley in Crikey was basically saying all this. The bill is 144 pages, Joe.
So why haven't you read it then?
Yeah.
Bit of light reading for you.
Yeah. I did actually check that bit because I thought this can't be right.
Mm-hmm.
They carved out this genocide bit. And it is true. It is an exception in there. So, yeah.
Surely advocating for genocide is in and of itself a hate action.
Well, it is for the members, but it specifically says that's not going to make the group a hate group. So, yeah, that's where we're at. There were public submissions were allowed, Joe, for 48 hours. Unbelievable. Yes, as Michael Bradley says, this is not lawmaking, it's performance art. And they loved a whole bunch of things.
So if it was rushed through, there's a sunset clause there, isn't there?
I don't think so. No. So, yeah. I'll read a bit of what he says. There's one part of the bill that really getting me. It creates an entirely new legal regime for prescribing hate groups. The idea is to enable the government to shut down or circumscribe the activities of groups that fall short of the definition of terrorist organisations, but that are still racist, like neo-Nazis. Before a group can be designated a hate group, the government has to be satisfied that it's been involved in or advocated conduct that constitutes a hate crime. That's the threshold test for the whole regime. The definition of hate crime is any of the offences in Subdivision C or Division 80 in the Criminal Code. These are all crimes about threatening, urging or committing violence against groups. Classic hate crimes, as well as more questionable offences such as displaying prohibited symbols like the swastika or giving a Nazi salute. So 3 of the specific Subdivision C offences are expressly excluded, meaning they are not hate crimes for the purposes of the new regime. 2 of these make sense. Urging violence against the Constitution. Joe, if you're a member of a group that urges violence against the Constitution, not a hate group.
Well, the Constitution isn't a person.
Yes. And advocating terrorism because it's not race-related. The third exception is Section 80.2D, offence of advocating genocide. Yes, advocating genocide is not, under this new law, a hate crime. Why has it been excluded, you might ask? And the reason he posits or thinks about is Israel and several of its government leaders are under indictment for genocide. Pro-Israel lobby groups have spent the past 3 years monstering anyone who dares whisper that the country might be perpetrating a genocide, while staunchly defending every genocidal step the Israeli state takes. It would perhaps be in their interest to not risk being labelled a hate group on the basis of advocating genocide. Could that be true, Joe?
No.
Mm.
I don't think the Israeli lobby have got our politicians in their pockets in any way, shape or form.
No evidence of that. So,
No.
yeah. And I mean, when it comes to harm, it can be this whole thing about hate crime conduct that involves causing serious harm to a person or creates a serious risk to the health or safety of a section of the public. Engaged in because of the targeted people's race or national or ethnic origin. Serious harm can be psychological harm, health or safety, and can be psychological health or safety. So
hang on, making inflammatory comments about Somali refugees in Victoria, for instance.
Yeah. Well, Joe.
A la Peter Dutton.
Well, the risk, Joe, would be, gosh, if you have such wide laws and maybe the consequences work against you inadvertently, that you weren't thinking about it, and you would think perhaps, oops, I better maybe not sort of pass this because it might affect my group. Rest assured, none of this is actually checked by any courts because it's just a combination of the minister consulting with ASIO, deciding which is a hate group, and then just telling the Governor-General to prescribe them as one. So if you're in power, you don't have to worry.
Right, okay. And is there any recourse?
Because you're in control. No. Even things like natural justice don't even apply to this. So it's just an authoritarian manoeuvre and will all be decided by people that we can trust, Joe.
Yeah, okay.
Trust us is what they're saying. A terrible piece of legislation, and it snuck through, and we're all wandering around the beaches down here completely oblivious to it and couldn't give a shit, and that's what's happening. So if you direct the group's activities, possibly 15 years jail, Joe. Being a member, 7 years. If you're a recruiter, potentially 15 years. Donating or providing support, 15 years prison, potentially. Also, Joe, I noticed this in the definition of a member. So remember, a hate group has members who engage in these things. The definition of a member is a person who is an informal, well, includes a person who's an informal member of the organisation, a person who has taken steps to become a member of the organisation. Filled in the application form, Joe. Like the
Presumably.
organisation might have said, might have been ready to go, no, we're not accepting you.
Yeah.
But they've taken the step to become a member, and they're not even a member yet.
No,
or
but
if you
because
just,
you want to join them, you're obviously a bad person.
yes, and therefore the organisation is,
Yeah.
even if they haven't had a chance to knock you back yet, because you've taken a step to become a member.
Right, but surely it's the group, or are they saying that even if they haven't joined as a member of the group, the whole group is prescribed because this
Yes.
person's done bad things? Right, okay.
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly a person who has taken steps to become a member of the organisation.
Right, I thought this was if the organisation was banned and this person had tried to join it, then they were also in trouble.
Well, no, you could be, in theory, a fairly innocent organisation, but you've got a member who applies who is engaged in a hate crime. Yeah. So David Spears interviewed the Attorney General, Rowland. She was a particularly unimpressive woman. I have never seen her speak before. And I thought, my God, this is our Attorney General. And he said, because he was running through the hypotheticals of what it means, and he said, if they say Israel is engaged in genocide, this isn't a group, and Jewish Australians feel harassed or intimidated, they can be banned? ? And she responded, if those criteria are satisfied, then that is the case. So Israel's engaging in genocide. Jewish Australians feel intimidated. Government can ban that group. That's where we've got to, dear listener. Sigh.
Well, as a descendant of Jews, I feel that the actions of the Israeli government are putting me and my family at risk.
Indeed, you're not alone. Many Jewish Australians feel exactly the same way. It's this whole conflation of Israel and Jewish people. I mean, you should be able to criticise any ideology,
Absolutely.
religious, political, whatever it might be, if it's just ideas. If it's about, fixed characteristics that people have, then we shouldn't be going around hating people because of their gender or sexual orientation or things like that. But if they've got nutty ideas, they're up for criticism.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. So what we've got in Australia, Joe, it's totally legal to criticise the Australian government, but a crime to criticise the Israeli government, potentially. And also, this other person said, Jewish Israelis in Israel are free to demonstrate and criticise Bibi Netanyahu and his government, but Australians in Australia will not be able to demonstrate and criticise Netanyahu and his government in Sydney and Melbourne because that would be anti-Semitic.
Yes.
Wow.
Including Jewish Australians.
On holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is incredible. Yeah. There we go. So, anyway, the coalition imploded over this. Actually, the Chaser had a good one. It had a picture of Susan Lee and Little Proud, and the Chaser's headline was, controversial hate speech law already sees renowned hate group falling apart.
Yes.
Referring to the coalition. It's all going well for One Nation. I think I remember last week we might have mentioned One Nation is up to 22%.
Well, hasn't Gina Reinhardt decided she's going to fund One Nation now?
No, I didn't. Did she? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I think there was something about she was going to fly 4 of them off to meet Trump at Mar-a-Lago. She was going to pay for the tickets.
Right. Okay. Of course she is. So, looking at a chart here, One Nation in December, its vote was 15.5, and now it's up to 21, according to this poll. So a gain of 6. And so, yeah, they're doing quite well. And they might pick up some seats. It depends, because their vote would be, when you say they've got 22% overall, 21%, in the cities, of course, it would be much lower, but in the regional areas, very high. So they could pick up some seats in the lower house next election.
If your mother is also your auntie, then there's a very good chance you'll be voting for them.
Leadership contentions. So Susan Lee in trouble. Possible candidates would be Andrew Hastie and who was the other one? I've got his name right here. Why can't I read it? Andrew Taylor, Angus Taylor. So they're also talking about Josh Frydenberg as if he could somehow be leader from outside the party and then sit for Kuyon, because I think Campbell Newman did that in Queensland at one point, became leader from outside the party and then sat in the state election and got the seat.
Wasn't he LNP mayor, though?
He had been the Lord Mayor and then transferred to the state, but became leader but wasn't actually a member of the parliament.
Right,
so,
okay.
And I think he just sat in the gallery or something for a while until the election came around, and then he actually managed to win a seat and then was the leader. And, of course, then totally fucked things up. But, that's...
Oh, yes.
He did it the hard way. So Angus Taylor, pretty boy Angus, according to this story from Peter Brent in Inside Story, Angus Taylor, incidentally, he's a Rhodes Scholar.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion of Rhodes scholarships has deteriorated markedly. If somebody like Angus Taylor could get it. In the same way that my opinion of Nobel Prizes has dropped a lot in recent times as well. So, yeah. So according to this writer, Angus Taylor would be a snooze fest punctuated by the odd bungle. But Andrew Hastie would be a red-pilled, high-octane ideology option, promising a bit more excitement. He'd be a throw of the dice. There'd be a honeymoon period, and it would all then unravel eventually because Hastie is a bit Trumpian, Joe. Likes Trump. But oddly, paradoxically, he's actually sort of questioning the US alliance. Like he's actually, well, and we'll get on to a few people are starting to question the US alliance, but he's one who's questioning it.
Trump is questioning alliances, so maybe being more Trumpian is more isolationist.
True. It's actually right. He's so Trumpian that he's actually questioning the alliance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're dead right. Yes. I like that. And he's also going to go on about God a lot.
Even better.
Yes. And, don't want women having rights and things. They should be at home.
Because one way to piss off the electorate is to bang on about your religious beliefs.
Yes. So according to this writer, if Andrew Hastie got in, there'd be a bit of a honeymoon period that always happens when a new leader arrives, and then it would quickly unravel as these things got exposed. And he's obviously in the right camp, and while he would be a little, I don't know, a dead cat bounce for them, it'd be even a worse option for them in the long run in terms of the cities, because with
let's hope he gets in then.
With his God stuff and his Trump stuff. But Joe, the problem is it means Labor can just be so terrible.
Well,
no, still get away with stuff.
I disagree. I think maybe the right wing will drift to Labour, but I'm hoping the left wing will drift to the Greens. I'm hoping that long term it's the Greens and Labour are the right wing and the Greens are the left wing of Parliament.
That could be it.
And the fringe parties are the fringe parties.
Yeah. So Hastie would get the coalition back together again because he's right wing enough to keep the Nationals happy. But then it would all go pear shaped. And then Bernard Keane wrote a good article in Crikey basically explaining that that the coalition implosion is what they deserved because they really politicised what happened at Bondi. And the same with News Corp and the 9 newspapers egged Susan Lee on and
wanted a royal commission, wanted hate speech laws.
Correct. And didn't stop to think, these speech laws, are a thing that's divided this party for the last 10 years. And gun laws are things that the Nationals will oppose, stricter gun laws.
Yeah.
But, of course, in urban electorates, people are all in favour of it.
Yeah.
So by demanding the recall of Parliament, they were basically just setting up landmines, not that Albanese would trip over, but they themselves would, because they were things that they were bound to have internal problems over. And with her leadership so shaky, those tensions were invariably going to cause a leadership problem.
Well, she was always a patsy anyway, wasn't she?
Yes. But they never stopped to go, we demand that Parliament come back. We demand we have tighter gun laws. We demand speech be, without thinking, shit, I've got to deal with a coalition and a bunch of crazy guys and women in the party. It's hard to get them to agree on anything. Without thinking it through.
About the gun laws, apparently there's a whole load of recommendations from Port Arthur that were never implemented.
Right.
So, the things like a national gun register apparently came out after Port Arthur and never got implemented. And it's, you don't need a royal inquiry because you've already had one and you ignored the results from that, the recommendations. So, I think most people are in favour of rational gun laws.
What are they saying in the chat room? Let's see. Actually, I'll put,
John said, could this fall over in the Supreme Court?
Meaning the High Court in Australia. I don't know. It's the thing. It's 118 pages. It's all happened over Christmas. Normally these things chug along for months and various commentators and lawyers and people with time get to write this sort of stuff. But there just hasn't been time to see any analysis of it. So who knows if it's somehow unconstitutional? I have no idea. And he says also, I do hope the Libs have a leadership change. They can go fight out for those voters on the nutbag ride. That's what's probably going to happen. And Black Luigi said, I did hear somewhere there is still a religious exemption. Don't know. Haven't had time to look closely. We'll probably talk about it in future when we've got a bit more detail about it. Trump's America, Joe. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney came out in a speech at Davos and he said, I'm going to quote here, actually, and there's a little bit taken out, but all these words are his. We knew that the story about the rules-based order was partially false. We knew that international law applied with varying rigour depending on the identity of the accused and the victim. This fiction was useful, So we largely avoided calling out the gaps between rhetoric and reality. This bargain no longer works. So the Canadian Prime Minister has the first Western leader
Mm-hmm.
to openly acknowledge, the rules-based international order was unfair, read between the lines, to brown people and was all about favouring the Western powers, in particular the United States, and B, it's no longer working because that member of that international rules-based order is going around creating havoc and
Yes.
threatening people who aren't brown, Joe.
Well, yes. Although taco.
Yes, taco. What's taco?
Yes. Trump always chickens out.
Oh, okay.
He did. He was threatening Denmark and also the countries that were supporting Denmark.
Yes.
And he's backed down.
He's still saying he's thinking about doing it, isn't he?
No. So he said there will be no military invasion. He's ruled that out. He's also backed down on the tariffs.
Oh, I didn't hear that bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. No military invasion.
Mm.
Okay. Well, yeah. So, as a Twitter commentator said, the bargain no longer works because it's targeting them. They had no problem with a false international order that targeted and subjugated brown people. So, somebody else said the purpose of the liberal rules-based order was to give legitimacy to a world system structured around US empire. Trump has torn down this facade. What's left is the reality of naked imperialism.
Well, Trump was very upset that Britain has decided to give back Chagos to the Chagos Islanders.
Yes. He sent out a truth or a statement about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're giving it back for no reason.
Yes.
In capital letters.
It was actually the British, I think it was the Supreme Court in the UK.
Right.
Finally ruled against the UK government.
Ah, they were forced to legally, were they?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Here I was thinking they did it out of the goodness of their heart.
God, no. Fairly sure it was a Supreme Court. It was a court action taken by the islanders and they finally won.
Ah,
so it's being transferred to Mauritius, I think.
Right. And they stole it off in the first place, presumably?
Well, so Mauritius was a British colony.
Right.
And they excised it, moved the Chagos Islanders off because they wanted it to lease to the Americans.
Yes. Yes. Hence why Trump is particularly annoyed, because ordinarily, why would he care if the UK gives away?
It's a huge staging area for the US military.
Yes.
It's their forward positioning. They've got tons and tons of weapons and ammunition stored there that they can transfer to a war zone anywhere in the Pacific very quickly.
Well, all the ships he was going to send to Greenland, they might head in that direction instead. Yeah. Okay. Andrew says, not giving back to Chagos Islanders, giving Chagos to Mauritius.
Mauritius, right.
That's what you said, I think?
Yes.
Yeah. Donald Trump's niece, I think, is Mary Trump.
Yes.
And she said, when I saw this letter, I literally thought, this is too stupid even for him. I should have known better. And this was the letter that he wrote to, I don't know, is it the president or prime minister of Denmark? What was it? Norway. Dear Jonas. Who was that?
That was, yes, president of Norway.
Maybe he's blaming Denmark here.
No. He was blaming Norway for the Peace Prize.
All right. Here's his letter. Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace.
Yes.
Get that? Because you didn't give me the Nobel Peace Prize, I'm not obliged to think purely of peace. Although it will always be predominant. but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China, and why do they have a right of ownership anyway? There are no written documents. It's only that a boat landed there hundreds of years ago. But we had boats landing there also. I've done more for NATO than any other person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. Thank you, President DJT. So,
I don't know why Americans think they've got a claim on America, just because some boats landed there.
Yes. Same here, Joe. Why have we got a claim here? I don't know, Joe. I kind of hope Trump takes Greenland off them because, like other Western countries, Denmark is guilty of cowardice and double standards. And I'm going to play a little bit of a clip of my favourite, Jeffrey Sachs, 2 minutes, 52 seconds. Here we go.
Completely right. Europe went along with every abuse. And let's remember, we have just been complicit in a genocidal operation in Gaza. So this isn't theoretical about what's going to happen to Greenland. We had a genocide in Gaza before our eyes in the last year, which the United States funded, armed, supported with military intelligence, and gave full diplomatic backing to. That's, by the way, both Biden and Trump. So we're in, and the Europeans couldn't utter a word. Interestingly, I was at the UN Security Council after the Israelis bombed Iran. So around the table, all the Europeans said, they made warnings to Iran. You better show restraint. Not one of them challenged Israel for having just bombed Iran. I actually, ironically, had a little colloquy with the ambassador to Denmark because I went up to her after her rather shocking words and said that how much I like Denmark, and in a publication that I co-edit every year, the World Happiness Report, Denmark's always at the top, the happiest country in the world, and she was very happy. She smiled at me, and then I said, but wouldn't it be nice if you mentioned not Iran's restraint, but that Israel just bombed Iran? She turned around and walked out without a word. That's the level of the reality. Same thing happened with the kidnapping of Maduro. All they could get out of their mouth was, well, he's a terrible person or he's an illegitimate president. No one could say a word about the United States brazenly violating the UN Charter and its implications. So you're completely right. I don't want to attack the Europeans when they're being attacked, but I do want to say that consistency, that actually we should follow some principles, is what keeps us all alive, we hope. And if Europe doesn't utter a word when the United States makes every abuse, every regime change, every covert operation, every bombing, every complicity in Israel's crimes, then they turn around and are surprised about Denmark. It's
Good point, I think. We can be, on the one hand, sympathetic for Denmark and the whole Greenland issue, but on the other hand, you sat in the sidelines and watched everybody else suffer and didn't seem too worried about it. So, yeah. Joe, Europeans claim it's unprecedented for the leader of a member state of a defensive alliance to be threatening another NATO member state. This is according to Yanis Varoufakis. So, because we've got this situation theoretically, or we did have, you're saying we don't have it anymore, about NATO member, the US, attacking NATO member Denmark in order to get Greenland. And so he says, since 1952, successive Greek governments have been desperately struggling to get NATO to commit to coming to Greece's defence if Turkey invaded Greece, fellow NATO
Yes.
member.
Well,
And
Greece have been at each other's throats for a long time.
yes, so this sort of potential US attack on Denmark, a similar situation has been in the wings in terms of Turkey and Greece, according to Varoufakis. And he says NATO steadfastly refused to make such a commitment. Why? The official answer has been that NATO is committed to defending member states from belligerent non-member states, but not from each other. So he said, want to know why Greece is perhaps the only member state that consistently spend a lot more on weaponry than the bare minimum? That's why, because NATO has unwaveringly refused to defend its borders in case of a skirmish or war with Turkey. So
Well, I think Turkey's the same.
probably. And so
I mean,
Denmark...
Flashpoint was Cyprus, and there's interesting evidence that Greece's involvement in Cyprus was what led to Turkey invading the eastern half of Cyprus.
Okay. So he's basically saying the official NATO position is NATO doesn't come to help when one member state attacks another member state. You're on your own. That's been the official position. So Denmark, Giannis is saying, you're on your own. Welcome to the club. And remember, your government also argued that it's not NATO's job to defend any member state from another NATO member state. So he's saying, good points. Yeah. This commentator on Twitter came up with a good solution for the Greenland problem, and that was advice to Denmark was tell the Trump administration that the Epstein files are in Greenland. Then they'll lose all interest and we'll never be able to find it.
That's a good idea.
And Joe, I think it was last week, we had that incident with the woman who was just shot by an ICE agent while in her car, and the incredible Orwellian speak from ICE agent authorities claiming ICE agents lucky to be alive.
Move on.
Yes. Well, there was something to see. She was a terrorist.
Yes.
She was trying to kill him and she deserved everything she got. And now, just in the last couple of days, we've got this guy who turns out was a sort of intensive care theatre nurse, and he had a gun on him.
For veterans.
What's that? For veterans, yes.
Yes.
No less. And he had a gun on him, and initially they were saying he was armed and it was a threat to the ICE agents, but in these days of everyone having a video camera, the footage clearly showed that he was holding his phone and that the weapon was taken off him before the ICE agents then shot him. So these are just marauding mercenaries.
3 murders in Minnesota since the beginning of the new year, and 2 of them have been committed by Trump's Sturmabteilung.
Yes.
So
what does that mean, literally? What's it?
Stormtroopers.
Stormtroopers, yes.
But they were the Nazi brown shirts.
Yes.
Who were very, very involved in Hitler's rise to power in the 1930s. And people have been comparing ICE to the Gestapo. They are considerably more like Nazis' brown shirts.
Well, I was watching the news tonight and it just had a bit on there and it quickly flicked across to some guy who was some sort of ICE high up authority. I don't know what his title was.
Bonvino, I think.
Maybe.
Bovino.
But he was literally in a kind of a Nazi brown suit. That it really did have all of the hallmarks of that kind of era and that tone to it. And it's all just happening in America now as they implode over these issues. So just a question of how long it takes. I mean,
well, you hear about the 5-year-old that was grabbed by...
Yes. I saw a picture of the poor kid.
Yeah.
just
grabbed and used as bait so that his parents would come and retrieve him, and then they could arrest the parents.
yes. The headlines now, Joe, you don't need the Onion or the Chaser or that anymore. Like this, a legitimate Newswire headline was, ICE agents eat lunch at Mexican restaurant, later detain 3 staff members.
Yeah.
Little 5-year-old kids taken away.
One of the school districts has literally closed. One of the school districts in Minnesota has closed down for a number of days because ICE were hanging around.
Mm.
And they've said, we're not going to comply with the authorities. We're not going to have you turning up. Go into hiding, basically.
And the civil war will start when a Democratic governor will say, I'm not letting these ICE agents in, and we're going to start rounding them up.
This is what Trump is after. Trump wants a civil war because then he can get rid of the election. He knows he's going to lose the next election.
He also annoyed NATO allies and Australians when referring to... Well, he cast doubts on NATO's reliability.
Because they sat back in Afghanistan and the Americans did all the heavy work.
Yes, he said, we never needed them. They'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan, and they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines.
So the only time that NATO Article 5 has ever been invoked was after the US 9/11, when the US invaded Iraq and Afghanistan and asked for NATO help.
And that's the thanks you get.
Yep. So the only country that has ever called for NATO help has been the US, and it was delivered.
Liberal leader aspirant Andrew Hastie, I was just talking about, former SAS, God botherer, called Trump's comments a massive slur, not just against Allied troops, but against our Aussie diggers who fought, bled and died alongside Americans. He says, one of the most important things in building coalitions and alliances is mutual respect, and a really important virtue in a leader is restraint, and President Trump, by dumping on Allied troops, has shown neither. So he's a former troop commander in the Special Air Service Regiment. So what did our Prime Minister say? Something like, I'm not going to provide a running commentary of what Donald Trump says. So
I've heard a number of US generals, senior military people interviewed who are saying it's absolute bullshit. The man's talking out his arse.
Yes.
So even the US military are pissed off. He is, historically right-wing and particularly proto-fascists like Trump have had the backing of the military, and he is doing everything in his power to piss them off.
John, in the chat room, Zelensky had a good speech in Davos. Are you serious, or are you being sarcastic there, Dire Straits?
Oh, yeah, he was saying it's like Groundhog Day. Every time I come here, I give the same speech and get the same guarantees out of Europe and nothing ever happens. Come on, get your act together.
All right. He kind of insulted them. He went there and insulted them, didn't he?
I think he called them out on their bullshit. Said, put your money where your mouth is.
I don't think they want to.
Well, no, because that would mean having to tax rich people.
I've said it 1,000 times. It's time to give in on that one. Anyway, all's well, Joe, because we don't really need a United Nations. I mean, they can keep going. I mean, they've got some potential, according to Donald Trump, but Trump's board of peace.
That's it, yes. With a mere $1.5 billion buy-in for a seat at the table.
The gall of this guy.
That King Trump is going to sit on for as long as he wants.
Yeah. So
I got the Doctor Who joke.
No, I didn't get that. Oh,
Davros was the leader of Yes, the leader of the
Okay.
Daleks.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not a Doctor Who person. Yeah.
Right. Neither am I really.
Yeah, so Trump has set up a board of peace. I think, Joe, you don't have to pay that fee, but if you do, then you're guaranteed membership for
As long as
ever
Trump can...
or something.
No.
Yeah,
Until Trump gets pissed off and kicks you out.
Right. That's it. So, as this person said, nothing says board of peace like having two founding members. We're talking Putin and Netanyahu.
Well, and
Not
also Belarus.
Belarus, yes.
Yeah.
Not show up to the signing ceremony because they would be arrested at the airport for war crimes.
Mhm.
A reporter to Trump, have you invited Putin to be a member of the board of peace? Trump says yes. The reporter, can you respond to Macron saying he will not join the board of peace? And Trump says, nobody wants him. I'll put a 200% tariff on his wines and he'll join. It's just the insanity of it's just, yeah.
French wines are expensive anyway.
Yeah.
People who want French wines will pay whatever it takes, and people who want cheap wine will buy whatever is not French.
Nobel Prize. I mean, we've had this problem with Machado getting the Peace Prize.
Mhm.
This is a woman who has been agitating for a foreign country to invade her country and create regime change, and
they did.
and applauded the violent kidnapping of the president. She is the Nobel Peace Prize winner. Of course, she then offered the prize to Trump as if she could transfer its title, and the committee was not happy with that. And they said, the committee, in response to all that, one of the core missions of the Nobel Foundation is to safeguard the dignity of the Nobel Prizes and their administration. The foundation upholds Alfred Nobel's will and its stipulations. It states that the prizes shall be awarded to those who have, quote, conferred the greatest benefit to humankind, end quote.
Like Henry Kissinger.
And Machado. And it specifies who has the right to award each respective prize. A prize can therefore not, even symbolically, be passed on or further distributed. Somebody commented that the dignity was lost when you awarded it to Maria Machado in the first place, and she confirmed it by giving it to a pedophile. Joe?
Alleged.
The Nobel Prize in Economics. It's not credible either. It's not just
Probably
the Peace
not.
Prize. Because for the past 40 years of China's economy has been the largest wealth growth in human history. But no Chinese have won the Nobel Prize in Economics. I hadn't really thought of that before, but it's a fair comment. You would think somebody in there deserved a economics
I was going to
prize.
say, is there an architect? And if so, who was the architect?
Dung?
Don't know.
So, I would have thought he could have, by opening up with the special economic zones, and I would have thought he's the architect myself. Where are we up to? 8:29. That's probably not a bad place to stop. Next week, I will go into some detail about the protests in Iran, Joe. It's so hard to know where the truth is on these things where you suspect colour revolution. Like, when do you have a genuine freedom-fighting protester, and when have you got a CIA-backed instigator? It's really hard to know where.
Well,
the truth
latest
lies.
reports are 30,000 dead, so I don't think it was an unpopular movement.
Yeah, well, see, where did the reports come from?
Well, yes.
This is the problem. So Mint Press did an excellent expose on the groups that are quoted for these figures are invariably human human rights activist groups within Iran who are invariably funded by the National Endowment for Democracy, who is, of course, the front for the CIA and who openly do the work that the CIA could no longer do. So, so the information that we get is coloured by the fact that we're really relying on a paid agency of the CIA to tell us how many people have died in these things.
Well,
It's
we
really
could listen to
fascinating.
RT. I'm sure they'd be factual.
Well, it's again, you don't know that. Obviously, you can't trust them either. But who knows where the truth lies on these things? So, just remember. So he says, John says, just remember, Trev, the lack of evidence isn't evidence of anything.
Yes.
Well, what I'm saying, the lack of evidence isn't evidence.
Absence of
anything.
evidence isn't evidence of absence. So just because we don't
Yes.
have good evidence doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
Correct. So, John, if you're listening carefully, I'm saying we don't know is what I'm saying. And I'm saying the problem is that what's reported to us is by people who we can't trust. So,
But this is the problem with all closed states is the only information you're going to get out is via spy agencies
yes,
or by
It's
the
even
government.
it's even the problem in open states, Joe, and a lot of
Well,
things.
yes.
So, except where you've got video evidence of ICE agents, killing people. There's lots of other stuff that goes on even in open states where we're relying on people who are.
And to be honest, even when we do have video evidence of stormtroopers murdering citizens in the street, there are people who refuse to believe it.
True. And
Because the party has told them otherwise.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah. So that's next week. Bit on Iran and even our ABC, who they have relied on to talk about this issue, they never quote, these people are put on as experts on Iranian affairs, but it's never disclosed. Well, of course, these people are funded by an organisation that's taken over the role of CIA, so take everything they say with a grain of salt. You're just basically told, this is an expert on Iranian affairs, and there you go. So a very one-sided story we've been getting. Who knows where the truth lies? That will all be next week.
I'm sure that expats will have families back in Iran who are aware, there's going to be, admittedly it will be rumour, but they'll have an undercurrent of feeling. Same as Russia. You can't trust what's coming out of Russia. But knowing expats, you can get a hint of what's going on behind the scenes.
Yes, but even then, when you're actually in a demonstration, so the classic colour revolution tactic is that you've got paid agitators who latch onto. So I've got little doubt that the initial demonstrations were by shopkeepers and merchants complaining about inflation and the cost of living, et cetera, but then there's paid agitators on the sidelines who move in on these demonstrations, and they're the ones who are the most violent and who are armed, who then...
But Putin tried that in Ukraine and nothing happened. He tried that in Donbass back in 2014 and it didn't work.
But this happens in colour revolutions all the time.
Well, obviously there has to be some groundswell there more than just paid agitators, because paid agitators isn't enough.
Correct, but they can turn a peaceful protest into a violent one really quickly. So,
Possibly.
Most protesters, even brown ones, aren't necessarily wanting to shoot the police, but these paid agitators will take that violent step, and then the whole thing gets out of hand. So that's the difficulty with these things is is they're like a fire accelerant thrown into what could otherwise be relatively peaceful demonstrations that take it to a whole new level because they're trying to create regime change. That's classic colour revolution tactic that they've been using for ages. So you really don't know how much is grassroots and how much is what's that term you used? Artificial grass.
Oh, astroturfing.
Astroturfing. Okay. All for next week. No?
There was also the hypocrisy of Trump saying to Iran, "Don't you dare crack down on civil protest."
Yeah. Don't shoot
at
your
the same
protesters.
time.
That's our job. Also, don't you dare, because if you do, we're going to bomb you.
Yeah, that was it. Yes.
Yeah. So if you start killing people in the thousands,
and of course Taco,
yeah,
he chickened out on that one. He hasn't bombed Iran.
Yeah, but if you start killing people in the thousands, that's our job. We'll show you how it's done. We'll do it in the tens of thousands.
Yeah,
that'll teach you. Yeah. Alrighty. Look forward to that next week. We'll try and hunt down Scott, see where he is. Anyway, we'll be back then. That's all for now. Talk to you next week. Bye for now.
And it's a good night.